And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Monday, January 9th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. And the NBA has given us a gift this week. We have 6 games on today's slate. All 5 days of the work week are incredibly manageable. It's going to be a fun one. So I hope you guys are ready to play some DFS this week. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how was your weekend? Anything good in the NFL for you?
Absolutely not. Terrible way to end the NFL season. It was kind of a shitty season overall. I think I came out slightly ahead, but really just a frustrating year. And yesterday did not change anything there. But finally flew back to Baltimore, so glad to be home, I guess. But other than that, no, nothing good yesterday.
I had one lineup break free on FanDuel. Their big contest was like 220,000 people. I got to 109th, which is awesome. Like on paper, from a tracking your stats perspective, it's also totally meaningless from a financial standpoint. So it looks good, but it ultimately doesn't matter at all. So that's the best that I could hope for yesterday. Makes me wish that was in like a 30,000 person field, because it probably would have been pretty good. I haven't actually looked at anything like that. I probably don't want to, but I'm just really excited to play NBA today. 6-game slate, great balance. It's going to be like that all week. It's just more fun this way. And 6-game slates are hard because you have to look at the bench a little bit more than you normally want to, but they're still not like extra special priorities. It gets really murky. This is where you get like the random, Joe Ingles is in the optimal type situation. So I love it.
Do you think the schedule's like this because football's wrapping up? Because that would be really cool if we're just going to get this like the rest of the year.
I hope so. And that would make sense to me. Just, you're taking 2 out of the 5 days of the week and removing a primetime NFL game. Sort of. I mean, there is a Monday Night Football game next week.
Well, and the reason that I'm not sure that I don't really think that's the case is they still always have a ton of games on Monday. It's not like they do like a ton of games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So, but like, I don't know, maybe if they just go to playing like actual games on Thursdays, that would be really nice.
I hope that happens. Eric hit us with the super chat. He said 6-game slates are perfect. Glad we have the best in the business to give us the goods. You're right. We are the best in the business. Not close either. Not even remotely close. I'm ready to just dive in and start talking about this. We don't have a hard out or anything. There's no NFL show behind us, but I would still like to be out of here. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, I'll say those are never words that I want to hear.
All right. Well, let's kick it off then. Starting in New Orleans, the Pelicans are 1.5-point dogs in Washington against your Wizards. On the Pelicans side, very easy here. We have no Brandon Ingram. We have no Zion Williamson. CJ sat out the back-to-back this weekend. He is in. Larry Nance is in. He also sat out the back-to-back on Saturday. So we have a relatively normal Pelicans team. It's pretty easy now that we've had Ingram out for ages, Zion out for a couple games. Let's start at the top here. CJ McCollum, 8,500 on DraftKings, 8,700 on FanDuel, in the teens in ownership, and that makes some sense to me. I think he projects really well here, but I think the price tag is about where it should be.
Yeah, agreed. Gets plenty of opportunities without Ingram or Zion out there. It's just ends up being a matter of efficiency for him. He has been playing better recently than he was earlier in the year, so that obviously makes you feel a little bit better about getting there. Price tag has adjusted a bit. You still do just have a very high ceiling. I mean, you're talking about around a 30% usage rate, around the 30% assist percentage. Somebody that should play 36 minutes, give or take, if this game is competitive. So certainly like getting to him. You mentioned double-digit ownership on DraftKings, 13% ownership, 13% chance of being optimal. So pretty much just correctly owned there. It's certainly a good option to get to.
When we look at the rest of these guys, it's pretty flat across both sites. Herb Jones in the teens, Najee Marshall in the teens. Joe Val's a little bit more owned on DraftKings at 6,600 than he is on FanDuel at 6,900, but he's about 20 on DK, about 15 on FanDuel. The big disparity comes to Trey Murphy. He's shooting guard small forward on DraftKings, 5,100 unowned. He's 4,500 for a small forward only on FanDuel, 22% owned. And I feel like the truth is sort of somewhat in the middle. 1.5% for Trey Murphy, even as a 0.75 guy or 0.8 guy, whatever you want to call him. For this slate, I think he's under-owned at 1%. Nothing too crazy. On the FanDuel end, 22% feels about right, but you don't have the same sort of flexibility. How do you see Trey Murphy in this situation, given that big disparity between sites?
I think he's a really good tournament play as long as that ownership stays low. Like, I understand he's not going to project as well as Najee Marshall. We have Herb Jones projected quite a bit better also. Like you said, so far this year without Zion or Ingram on the floor, still only 0.72 DraftKings points per minute for Murphy. You're just not really getting much at all in the way of assists or rebounding. And then also only a 15.5% usage rate. Fortunately, he is efficient. Otherwise, that production would be even lower. But he's still likely to give you a lot of minutes, especially if he's playing well. Last game where we, had these same guys in, you got 30.5 minutes from Murphy. You certainly could get a couple more, here or there. So I don't think he looks as good as, as Najee Marshall or as Herb Jones, but no ownership for a $5,100 Trey Murphy on a 6-game slate, shooting guard, small forward eligible, appealing matchup. Like, I think it should be a little bit higher than that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the gap between him and Marshall, with Marshall being $400 more expensive and the lesser MPE, should be, call it 18-2. That's just one spot where I would like to pinch it back together again. I have these guys a lot closer in normal per minute rates. Over the past 30 days, it hasn't been the case. Marshall's been a little bit better. Trey Murphy has not been as good, but that just means that I think that we're getting a little bit of value here.
I'm also curious what's driving we have Herb Jones 5 points ahead of Murphy, which I can't.
Fantasy points?
Yeah.
I have them equal, basically.
I think they should be. So that's what I was trying to figure out. We have Herb Jones in for 31.5 minutes, so nothing crazy there. And I accidentally just refreshed the page, so it's gonna be a second. But I assume we have Murphy around 30 minutes. So I don't know. That's weird to me because so far this year, Murphy 0.72 DraftKings points per minute without Ingram and Zion. Jones 0.78. Like, they're very, very similar players. So that's a spot too where you mentioned the difference in ownership between Marshall and Murphy. Even more so, if Herb Jones is going to pull 17% and Marshall's going to pull 2%, to me, those are the same play.
Yeah, I see all three of those guys as essentially equals. You want to give a slight nod to Najee Marshall because he's a better per minute guy. I think that's okay, but I don't even really need, to me, I don't see a ton of separation between all three of them. Marshall's minutes has been a tick higher.
He's the better per minute guy. He's also a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, I've heard Jones by 0.4 of a point in that discussion with Trey Murphy. So, well, that's a good, I appreciate you pointing that out because we're on the same page there. Larry Nance, 4,600 power forward center on DraftKings. He's 5,400 on FanDuel, makes it a little bit more difficult. Played 20.5 minutes on Friday in his return after having missed the previous 4 games, then sat out the back-to-back. Are you just giving him whatever minutes you don't give Joval?
Yeah, probably go 26, 22, something like that. Could go 25, 23. That's kind of how it's gone this year. But yeah, I mean, with Nance, it kind of just turns into one of those bench plays like you were alluding to at the start of the show. It's a small enough slate where there's mild interest in large field tournaments in Larry Nance. If Joval gets in foul trouble or Nance just plays really well, if you get one of those games where Nance just plays 25, 26 minutes for any reason, he's probably going to be pretty good at 4,600 and no ownership. It's just that, you're projecting him to play the backup minutes behind Joval, so 22 or 23 on average. But it's a small enough slate where at no ownership, there's at least mild interest there, especially because he does have power forward eligibility.
I have to assume you don't really like Joval at that ownership.
Not really at the ownership. $6,600 price tag with Larry Nance back, I think is correct, but towards the high end of being correct. So we do have him going a little bit over owned, 24% ownership, 18% chance of being optimal. Clearly still a very, very good point per minute guy and not an unappealing matchup here, but 1.16 DraftKings points per minute in 380 minutes without Zion and Ingram. It's just that you really can't expect more than 25 or 26 minutes with Larry Nance playing.
And it should come as no surprise that there are center options today. That is the theme of everything that we do nowadays. Do you find yourself wanting to get to anything from the bench otherwise? Do you see yourself taking shots on Jose Alvarado? I can't imagine it's Dyson Daniels or Devontae Graham.
Yeah, I mean, Alvarado would be the one, but he's also gotten more expensive. He's up to $4,500. He's not getting any ownership, but he played 32 minutes last game. He certainly doesn't have to play nearly that many minutes, but he can. But like the thing is, you can just get games where, Alvarado plays 24 to 26 minutes and Dyson Daniels plays a little bit more. And there's not going to be any real change. Or, if Trey Murphy goes from 30 to 34 minutes, that can very easily come from Alvarado as well. So, yeah, if he were like 3,800, I'd be interested. 4,500, I think makes it pretty tough.
Are you planning on setting any rules or groups for the Pelicans?
Joe Valnance.
Okay. Anything other than that? Anything with the Jones, Marshall, Murphy, Alvarado group?
No, I mean, I wouldn't want more than 3 of them, but
okay.
Don't even need to set that.
Yeah. If Trey Murphy were actually pulling some reasonable ownership, then it's not out of the realm that those guys start to pop up together. But I think Alvarado would be the limiting factor then too. There's not enough ownership coming in to for you to be getting those guys in abundance.
Yeah. Also, me just setting the team cap to 3 does it.
That will do it. Is that what you would do for a slate at 6?
That's my normal. Yeah, unless you get some team with just crazy value.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to do here for the Pels?
No.
When we go to your Wizards, still going to be without Bradley Beal today. Everybody else that's normally available is available. Johnny Davis out with a right hip strain. I don't even know how he managed to do that. Must have got up off the bench too quickly. I don't know how he pulled off that injury.
They're just trying to save face at this point and making up injuries for him.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to save face with a lot more than just Johnny Davis. So we actually got to see Will Barton play a little bit on Friday. Don't know if that was intended or not because they were getting their absolute asses kicked in the second quarter. So I think they just said, well, we might as well give something a shot here. I don't really know how to project Washington other than I kind of just want to give 8 guys all of the minutes and move forward. It's a competitive game. They're actually 1.5 point favorites here. So if this is competitive for the first time in ages, are we going to see that concentrated rotation or do you think they're going to be letting someone back in?
I think you see the concentrated rotation. Maybe you get one of Barton or Goodwin in there. One thing that I would certainly keep an eye on is what the starting lineup looks like because they started Jordan Goodwin over Daniel Gafford in the second half last game. If you get a starting lineup tonight that has Goodwin, then clearly Goodwin is in the rotation and you're now at least 9 guys because even if he comes off the bench, I expect Gafford to be in the rotation. So if Jordan Goodwin starts, you're at least 9 guys. And then, obviously if Barton ends up playing, that's 10. If they go back to the Gafford starting lineup, I think you're probably getting 8 guys if the game's competitive. Maybe Goodwin sneaks in there as a 9th guy or Barton sneaks in as a 9th guy. But I would just go back to the normal rotation if Gafford is starting, because I do think that it was just a factor of the Thunder are absolutely destroying us and why not? But I think that, in a competitive game, if they go back to that Gafford starting lineup, you're likely getting the 8-man rotation. If they go to Goodwin, then you're getting at least 9.
Yeah, 35-17 at the end of the first quarter for that game. The Thunder had a run of 19-4 and a separate run of 14-4. That's just not very good. So
also,
I guess
twice.
Jesus, so bad.
Oh, sorry, that was in the first quarter. In the second quarter, there was a 6-0, 8-0, and 8-0 run from OKC.
Gotta love it. So I'm just gonna kind of open it up to Washington in general. The only way that 9th guy matters is just from taking minutes away from the other 8. So I think we're only talking about 8 bodies. We're seeing everybody.
That's not entirely true. Like Jordan Goodwin's 3K. If he starts, he looks good.
Yeah. Like I said, taking away that 9th guy, like if they are playing that concentrated 8-man rotation, like we don't care about that extra 12 minutes. If Goodwin's starting, by all means, like we're going with it.
Okay,
I'm talking like if we're just maintaining that same starting lineup, all 8 guys are viable right now, either from an ownership perspective or from a minutes perspective. Everybody's in double digits in ownership except for Porzingis and Kispert. You're clearly willing to play Porzingis regardless. Kispert, a very different guy, but 3,900 on a 6-gamer, willing to take that flyer, I guess. Where do you look when you want to look at Washington if we're assuming they're just going business as usual, Gafford in the starting lineup?
If Gafford's in the starting lineup, I think he looks good here at 4,700. He is pulling a lot of ownership, coming in at 22%, but he would, like if he's starting, I think you just project him to play 26, 27 minutes. When he avoids foul trouble, you're typically getting, up near 30. When he's in foul trouble, obviously you're getting less, but expecting him around 26 makes sense if he's starting. That's a really cheap price tag. Clearly getting the Porzingis and Kuzma looks good, as it always does. They are getting relatively expensive. You do have power forward eligibility for Porzingis on DraftKings now, which makes him easier to get to than he was. But I think those are the three that you get to first. Monte Morris at 4,800, not a great fantasy option, around 0.8 fantasy points per minute, but that is a pretty cheap price tag for him. I honestly have no idea why Denny Avdia is getting 22% ownership. Like, he should be getting some. He's 4,200. He is likely to play or could play upper 20s. Also last game played 17, but that was with the deeper rotation. So I get like why he would get some ownership, but I don't know why it's that much, especially when you compare it to like Rui for $500 more, only pulling 10%. I think Avdia and Rui, factoring in salaries, are very, very similar, and you probably shouldn't have much of a gap at all in ownership percentage. So those guys are fine to get to off the bench. DeLon Wright, 3,300, playing backup minutes behind Monte Morris. We talked about him a bit the other day, and it's the same thing here. If he's going to play 18 to 20 minutes, probably not going to get it done, even at 3,300. But there's always a path to him taking minutes from Monte Morris, because Monte Morris is not that good, and DeLon Wright actually isn't bad. So you just get those games sometimes. Like back at the beginning of the year when DeLon Wright was healthy, you certainly saw some games where he closed over Monte Morris. So that I think is at least on the table and makes it kind of interesting. That being said, at 13% ownership, kind of being rostered at a frequency that like accounts for that. It's not like, you're talking about, he's 1% owned, and if he closes, he's going to be great. You kind of need those closing minutes at 13%. So don't love the ownership there. Kind of interesting to me that Kispert's not getting any ownership. He's not very good from a fantasy standpoint, but simply because he is likely to start, and if the game's competitive, play 30 plus minutes, he can just fall into fantasy production being on the floor for that long. So again, I think he's behind like all of these other guys, but I don't think he's behind them by that much.
Yeah, I just have such a hard time trying to figure out what I prioritize here. Like, I get to a little bit more Denny. I got him at 28 minutes. It's probably more of a price thing than anything else. And I guess, maybe small forward just looks a little bit more difficult to fill out than power forward today, something along those lines, where that's why you see the ownership disparity. But if I take 1 minute away from Denny and give it to somebody else, then it's immediately fixing that type of problem. Just sifting through the Kispert, Denny, Rui trio to me is very difficult. At least Morris and Wright, like, we kind of know what we need to do there. And you don't really have to pay too much attention to Kuzma or Porzingis. We just project them like they're going to get all of the minutes because they do. Kyle Kuzma, by the way, 7,500 on FanDuel. He's pulling 37% ownership, but to me, that is mostly warranted. That's just a really good price tag. 7,500 for Kuzma on FanDuel.
That's a really cheap price.
Do you set any groups or rules for this Washington team?
So I would probably only want one of Morris or Wright. I don't expect them to play next to each other. Max 2, maybe. I don't even know if I would set this, but like max 2 of Kispert, Avdia, Rui.
I honestly might not hate the Morris Wright combo because of the price tag.
It's still a roster spot though.
That's fair. Just based on where they're priced, you don't need as crazy of outlier games as like you normally would for some of these guys.
But you still kind of do. Like, you don't need as crazy of an outlier game for them to quote unquote pay off their salary. But to win like a large field tournament, you still need them both to like go off in terms of actual raw points.
Yeah, the more likely scenario ends up being that there's a better $4,800 thing that you could have over Morris.
Right. Like if DeLon Wright gives you enough raw points that you want him in your lineup, somebody probably is beating Monte Morris and vice versa.
Yeah, that's true. When you look at this, do you see a wizard that you would expect to be heaviest on? Because like it feels like it's Gafford, but he is center only, so you are like mildly limited.
With the way ownership looks right now, probably Rui.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like, he's getting less ownership than Morris, than Wright. And keep in mind, like, yeah, he didn't play a lot last game. He played 19 minutes, but that was the game with the weird rotation. Like, and you can't just, if you want to just carry that over, then there's, again, like, why is Avdia getting so much? He still played less than Rui. So, I think if you go back to that 8-man rotation, you're talking 26, 28 minutes from Rui, and that would make him look pretty good. If they do go to the deeper rotation, then yeah, you're screwed. But at 10% ownership, I don't mind taking that chance.
Obviously, we're going to get this info, so it doesn't matter. But do you think they're going to make the starting lineup change?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, against the Pelicans, it would kind of make sense. Like, they just have nothing but wings anyway, so why not play Goodwin over Gafford?
Going to be interesting. Maybe you just don't want Joe Val to go straight through Kristaps Porzingis.
And I mean, he's going to go straight through Gafford. It doesn't matter.
Probably. I don't have anything else for the Wizards other than, like, if we get the status quo of starting lineup, then all 8 of the guys that normally play are interesting in some way.
Would you take any shots on Goodwin if he's not starting at 3K flat and no ownership?
I don't think you can. I mean, they haven't been playing at all. He starts the second quarter because they're getting absolutely annihilated. It just feels like a situation where they put him in to get a spark. And yeah, like, I mean, they didn't really get that spark either.
I think that's what it was too. But then, like, does that just carry over and now he plays 16 minutes at no ownership in 3K?
Maybe. I also think that they could just as likely go to Will Barton instead of him too. Like, that's sort of the complicating factor. I mean, they both kind of did the same shit. I think Barton is
buried.
I mean, they played him in the second quarter.
Kind of. They played him for the last 5 minutes of the second quarter, and then he played the entire fourth.
Look, it just complicates. Like, if Barton doesn't get that run and they just redistribute those 5 minutes in the second quarter, I'd be like, okay, I might be like a little bit more willing. But now they're just starting to show that they might dust these guys off in a certain situation. And that extra ambiguity just makes me say, like, I can't go to Jordan Goodwin after not having played for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, that's fair. Even though I do think he's ahead of Barton, it's still just like, one, there's a high percentage that if Goodwin doesn't start, he's not in the rotation. And then 2, there is at least some chance that they go to a 9th guy and that guy is not Jordan Goodwin. So, like, it gets even, like, it's not like you can guarantee.
And at that point, maybe also a 10th guy.
Right. Like, it's not, it would still be a really risky play, but more reasonable if you were like, if they go to a 9th guy, I know for sure it is Jordan Goodwin.
I feel like if I'm going to Jordan Goodwin, I probably want him in a lineup that doesn't have some of the other wings from Washington. Like, I'd be okay if it was Porzingis.
I think
you want him without Gafford.
Yeah.
But, like, I wouldn't care if he was in there with Porzingis or Kuzma, but, like, I'd start to get nervous about Denny or Rui just because those are the guys that are now up to lose those minutes that they would have had originally. Starts to get scary with him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, like, I think that we're on the same page. Like, if he starts, clearly he looks fantastic at 3K. But if he's not starting, I think it's really difficult to play him.
Schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up at 2 p.m., we have the NHL strategy show. We'll have the No House Advantage NBA show at 3:30. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 5. We'll have live before lock at 6 p.m. So you get 2 straight hours of NBA coverage. And then 7 o'clock tonight, college football live before lock. We have got the national championship game for tonight, a game that I will watch for precisely 0 seconds. So that should be a real thrill. Will you play DFS tonight for that?
For college football?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I do wish I was still in Georgia, though, because the semifinal game was New Year's Eve, so obviously we were out. That was really, really fun.
Oh, I'm sure. Hit that like button, folks. 370 people in here, 53 likes. No reason we can't get up to 100. The Chicago Bulls, 8.5-point dogs in Boston, 237 total. Oh, this Bulls team. Q-tag on Caruso, Q-tag on Javonte Green, no Lonzo Ball, no Tony Bradley. We had no Caruso Friday and Saturday. I have him in for right now. If he happens to be out, you kind of just turn him into a little bit more of Kobe White. Pretty quick swaps here. Levine is 15% owned on DraftKings. Nobody else is in double digits. Sorry to DeMar DeRozan, I'm not rounding you up. And then DeMar DeRozan on FanDuel at 8,700, 26% owned, which I don't necessarily disagree with. No one else in double digits. I see some value on the FanDuel side, particularly in Levine. I think Levine should be the most owned guy on DraftKings. How do you want to manage this Bulls team, though, that is a pretty sizable underdog against Boston?
Yeah, so I mean, still like Levine. He's just underpriced at 7,500. In
Yeah.
competitive games, you're getting 34 to 36 minutes. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. Shooting guard, small forward, so he has like the best positional eligibility that you can. So 16% ownership to him, 15% chance of being optimal. All of that looks good. Vooch's price tag has increased a bit. I think 3% ownership on Vooch is probably a little bit too low, just given the type of ceiling that Vooch gives you every time he's on the floor. But, that salary did jump basically 10% from where it was over the weekend. So looks good, but more so, secondary tournament option. And I think that can be said for DeRozan as well. Small forward, power forward, but a 9K price tag just makes it difficult to get to. I mean, for example, just from spots we've talked about already, on DraftKings, Kyle Kuzma's $600 less expensive if you want a guy that's going to play a bunch of minutes and give you around 1.1 fantasy points per minute. You have Kyle Kuzma for less. So I think it just becomes difficult to prioritize DeRozan, difficult to prioritize Vooch. Levine certainly easier to get to. Patrick Williams is interesting to me too, though, at 4,400. He's been playing a lot of minutes. And if this game's competitive, you are likely getting, low to mid 30s from him again. He's not the best point per minute guy, but at not much ownership, $4,400, small forward, power forward, I'm interested in going there for value.
Yeah, I've been mildly interested in him over the past couple of days. He's at 5,200 on FanDuel, so it's not all that big of a priority for me. I'd be just as likely to get to Dosunmu at no ownership as I would for Patrick Williams, at least on the FanDuel side. But I do like it at 4,400 with the MPE. Very happy to get to Vooch as usual. Do you have any interest in Caruso if he plays at 3,600?
Not a ton. 0.74 fantasy point per minute guy, probably playing like low 20s in minutes if he plays, I would think, assuming he's coming off the bench.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave him 23 minutes. It doesn't seem to be all that interesting. I don't have any interest in Jones or Dragic say what you want about Drummond at this point, but with Vooch playing more minutes, you need a very specific outcome for that one. 3,200 though, he could easily pay it off.
Well, and you also need him in the rotation, which isn't a guarantee.
Also true.
If Caruso is out, I would have some interest in $3,400 Kobe White. He's just been playing. He's not very good, but been playing a lot of minutes without Caruso.
Yeah, we've seen him play 29, 24 and a half, and 28 essentially in the 3 games without Caruso. Caruso went down after 2.5 minutes in Wednesday's game of last week.
It's pretty wild.
Go ahead.
Oh, White has a 15.7% usage rate this year. Like, it's just crazy how, and I mean, obviously it was to be expected and it's correct, but like the difference in his role now versus what it was when like you had injuries or whatever it was a year or two ago.
25% usage gunner.
Right.
They should trade him immediately. Like, if you're going to miscast someone and play them in a role that like they clearly don't need, like low usage Kobe White doesn't have the skill set for the other things that you want him to do. Like, just swap him out for something that fits that piece a little bit better at the deadline if you need to.
Low usage shooter.
Yeah. Then we go to Boston. This is where it starts to get a little tricky. Doubtful tag on Marcus Smart for tonight. So we're seeing pretty big ownership come into Malcolm Brogdon, 28% on the DraftKings side. Grant Williams at 20%. Derek White at 7%. You get Tatum and Brown and Horford all in the 6 to 10 range. On FanDuel, most of this just gets bumped up a little bit. You're still getting to 30% Brogdon, but it's like 15% ownership going across the board. I think it's pretty clear that Brogdon gets the biggest bump with Marcus Smart. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any issue with that 27% ownership. That looks at a minimum good to me. I have significantly more on the FanDuel side. I gave him 28 minutes. I think there's room for, a little bit more playing time as well. What do you want to do with Derek White? He's 5,100 on DraftKings, 5,400 on FanDuel. You get the point guard, shooting guard, MPE. How big of a bump can you give to Derek White with no Marcus Smart?
I mean, I think you give him a few more minutes. I was trying to find the last game that Smart didn't play, and so I'm pulling that up now. It was December 21st against Indiana. So pulling that up, but I would expect that on average you're going to get a few extra minutes from Derek White.
Yeah, I gave him 29 minutes. That felt about right to me. I could very easily go a little bit higher than that if need be. He's just a guy with really weird minutes rotations. And like
in that last game, that was the game where you got the Peyton Pritchard start, and then he still only played 17 minutes. Derek White played 26 in that game, only played 3 minutes in the fourth quarter, wasn't in the closing lineup. Brogdon played 30 minutes. I think one way or the other, you're likely to get upper 20s, low 30s from White, and then, probably upper 20s from Brogdon. Pritchard, whether he starts or comes off the bench. Like if he starts, maybe I'll probably project like 18 or 20. If he comes off the bench, I'll project like 16. But, I think that that's probably, what you're going to see. But also, like, Grant Williams only played 16 minutes in that game. You could certainly see him play more. Like if Pritchard doesn't start, you could just see Pritchard DNP also. Very true. He usually does. Yeah. Yeah. Like in that game that he started, I think I had him prior to him starting. I think I had him projected for like 6 minutes or something. And if he doesn't start, you actually can kind of just not care about him at all. Give those minutes to Grant Williams. But that would also make it would make other pieces look better. Because like if Pritchard doesn't start, it's probably Grant Williams starting. Yeah. So like you would feel better about the Grant Williams minutes. You could just forget about Pritchard, but then White and Brogdon are still going to, be expected to play around 28, 30 minutes. Do you have anything interesting to say about Tatum and Brown? Like they just strike me as uninteresting, but like clearly guys you get to a little bit of. It's just, it's the same thing as like every slate now. Tatum's at 10-7, Brown's at 9,500. Those are pretty much correct price tags. They look fine for their average production. They're both also really, really good. So you still have plenty of upside there. But I do think they're correctly priced. I don't think Marcus Smart being out should have, too much of an impact on them as far as increasing their production because the offense already runs through them anyway. So they're kind of just guys that look fine just based on talent levels, but there's nothing that stands out. I don't really have much else to say here. The final question that I would have for you is today the day that we get more Robert Williams minutes? I think you could. He played 20. I lost it. He played 22 minutes in the last game that Smart was out. So, it is a situation where maybe you see him play a little bit alongside Horford. They played a total of like 2.5 minutes alongside each other in that game. Maybe you see a little bit more here. The minutes, are certainly there if they want them to be. Yeah. It's tricky. I don't know what they're going to do. Like they care so little about these games and everything is about just keeping him healthy. So I have no idea when they're going to start to ramp him up a little bit. Anything else for Boston? Like it looked like they were going to, and then they kind of stopped again. But he did play 22 minutes last game. He closed alongside Horford. That's interesting. Yeah, like it's tricky because every minute you give him starts to become like a real problem. Right. But he closed basically both halves. So like in the first half, Grant Williams played the final 38 seconds over Horford, but it was Robert Williams and Horford. And then in the fourth quarter, it was also Robert Williams and Horford. That's one of the big things that I was kind of looking for because when Williams first came back, he was playing minutes alongside Horford. And so it looked like they were going to just like straight, ramp him up into a normal role. But then they stopped giving him extra minutes and they just started playing him basically as Al Horford's backup. And it was like, all right, as long as they're going to do that, you can't really give Williams too many minutes because you're not just going to take all of Horford's minutes away. But now if they're going to go back to like, if your typical closing lineup now for the Celtics is going to be like Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Williams, you can start giving him, I think, 22-ish minutes pretty comfortably. Yeah. Just got a super chat here. How do you get a player in fewer lineups when you think they're overowned? I tend to get that player at field ownership with other low-owned players. Reduce their projection? Yeah, so to answer it as far as I do it, I don't like. Yeah. If I think that the thing with being overowned is you're still talking about a lineup, not a player. So in this situation, like where you said, I tend to get that player at field ownership with other low-owned players, that's perfectly fine. Like if I'm getting that to me, my process is telling me like, yeah, he's overowned in terms of optimal percentage, but he's also just a really good play. Like he's going to succeed a lot. You can build really good lineups with low-owned players and that still have this guy. So like, if that's the case, I don't care. I just play it. There's going to be other guys that are overowned that I don't get to. So yeah, I just wouldn't care. I would say like play that guy. Like you're not just avoiding every single player that's overowned. Right. It's really not something. It's kind of weird. It was great to see when we first started posting it
I feel like it probably does more harm than good now.
I think it gets talked about the wrong way. Like,
Yeah.
because you'll see it on Twitter too. Like, oh, this guy's so popular, blah, blah. It's like, it's 1 out of 8 spots in your lineup. And it's, you kind of just have to think about it. I think thinking about it in conjunction with like the boom percentage is useful, because like you can have somebody that is projected for, 80% ownership and has a 70% chance of being optimal. They're still optimal 70% of the time. Do you really want your stand on the slate to be like, oh, I'm going to not play the guy that's in the best possible lineup nearly 3/4 of the time? If they have a 50% chance of being 5x plus 10, like you're just getting somebody that's going to succeed so often that you're probably going to find other spots on the slate where like the ownership gap between them and somebody else is a lot more marginal, and the field is like making a bigger mistake than the field going crazy with the guy that's going to be optimal 3/4 of the time. So I think it's just, again, thinking about your entire lineup and not one individual player.
Anything else for Boston?
No.
This will be pretty quick. The Milwaukee Bucks are 2-point favorites in New York, 222 total. Bucks are still without Chris Middleton. Otherwise, everybody is available. Highest owned guy for the Bucks right now on DK is 8% Pat Connaughton. It's 8%. Sorry, it's 9% Pat Connaughton on FanDuel. I thought it was Giannis at 8. Nothing looks good here for Milwaukee. Obviously, if you want to pay up for Giannis, by all means, if you could find that salary, do so. I don't have a ton that I like here. I will put a quick asterisk on $7,400 Jrue Holiday. I have no idea how many minutes this guy's going to play. If for some reason you think he's going to play his standard issue like 34, then he is wildly underpriced.
Yeah, I really wish he was more expensive, honestly, because I have no idea how many minutes he's going to play. And if he just goes out there and plays his normal minutes, he is way too cheap. I'll probably project like 30. I have no idea what to do with him, because we just didn't get any semblance of normal run in that last game. Like he played, he moved into the starting lineup. He played about 12 minutes in the first half, but then didn't play it all in the fourth quarter. So you only got 19 minutes. I don't know, like 28 to 30 feels right, but
I gave him 28. I don't really have a great feel either way. I don't think it's going to matter too much for me either. So I'll care a lot less, but 7,400 is like a price tag where it actually matters what number you type in for minutes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just one of those, if he just goes out there and does play 34 minutes, you're going to feel so dumb seeing him at 3% owned. Like,
yeah,
but also I can't just give him 34 minutes given like, because it's not just that he played 19 minutes last game. It's that he played 12 in the first half. Like they were pretty clearly looking to play him like 24. They still didn't play him 24. So I don't know if that sets him back. Does he play 24 today? Or do they just say like, okay, cool, we'll keep ramping him up like we had planned on and give him 28, 30. But I'm probably going to go to like 28 or 30 minutes on him. It is a spot where I certainly at 3% ownership, I don't mind if I kind of err on the side of being a little bit too high and get, 10% or whatever. Just because I do think that there is a very, very clear path to Jrue Holiday being great today. But I think, projecting 28 to 30 minutes makes sense. Giannis at 12K, like you said, sure, if you get there, probably won't get a ton here. He's pulling 8% ownership. That seems reasonable. Connaughton at 3,600. I mean, I get it. He's likely to play mid to upper 20s. He's cheap, but also extremely not exciting.
Yeah,
I think the front court's actually kind of interesting.
I think we're on the same page there. Whoops, didn't mean to type where I just did there. That didn't help. Like, I don't mind taking shots at an unowned Brook Lopez or an unowned Bobby Portis. They don't look great, but tournament pivots off a 20-something% owned type Joval type play, something like that. That's where I could see it. We're like, I think Bobby Portis and Joval are going to play the same amount of minutes today. One of them is 20% owned. The other one isn't owned.
Right. Yeah, like I mean, 6,700 on Portis coming off the bench is certainly a scary price tag, but this is a spot where you expect them to play a lot of minutes alongside each other. You're going, against a Randall and Robinson front court. Like I expect plenty of minutes from Lopez and Portis. I think it's likely you get, 30 minutes or so from Lopez, 30, 31 from Lopez, 25, 26 from Portis. Very clearly can one of them or both of them, very clearly can put up big games here.
That said, none of these guys actually look good on their own without taking ownership into account.
Bobby Portis, Knicks narrative too.
There you go. The Knicks narrative right now is to play a healthy amount of the starters, and I will do just that. Doubtful tag still on RJ Barrett. Some of these guys, like Randall, is at 8% owned on DraftKings. I think I'm still willing to get there. 4% for Grimes. I think that's just an underrepresentation, at least a little bit for a 6-gamer. Quickly getting 25% on DraftKings, 35 on FanDuel. He is the most popular Knick. I just want these starters. Again, like Mitchell Robinson for 5,200 at half the ownership for Joval. It's much easier for me to want to get to Mitchell Robinson and the likely additional minutes by a substantial margin, at the very least equal.
Right. I mean, that is underestimating Mitchell Robinson's ability to foul, but
he's only played less than 25 minutes once in the past 3 weeks.
Like, yeah, he's been
out there.
Yeah, 35 minutes last game. But yeah, I'm with you. 5,200 for Mitchell Robinson certainly looks good. 12.5% ownership. Julius Randle is expensive at 10.4, but so far still no Obi Toppin in the rotation. And until Obi Toppin comes back, you can just expect 40 minutes from Julius Randle. When Toppin comes back, that could certainly change. We'd seen earlier in the year Randle playing 33, 34 minutes, but also Randle is playing out of his mind now as well. Like, he is making it very, very difficult to take minutes away from him when Toppin comes back, as opposed to just either barely playing Toppin or, playing Toppin some minutes at the 5 or something. Like, one way or the other, I expect huge minutes from Julius Randle. Brunson's playing a ton. Quickly's playing a ton. We've talked about it a lot with Quickly, that his per minute production really takes a hit when he's playing with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. But for as long as he's going to stay at $6,200 or in that range, just the fact that he's playing huge minutes is going to offset that enough to make him still look like a pretty good option.
Yeah, I want all of the starters.
I do think 27% ownership to Quickly is a little bit high, but
I don't know what to make of him at this point. I find it all very confusing. In the 5 starts that Quickly has where RJ Barrett did not play, 202 minutes, 21% usage, 56% true shooting, assist rate looks good. Like, I don't know what else to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like his rates are just so bad with Randle and Quickly that I think he's probably going a little bit over him. But again, it just goes back to the playing time. Like, you can knock off quite a bit of point per minute production if you're going to take the guy from 24 minutes to 38 minutes.
Very true.
506 minutes now with, nope, that was wrong. So with Randle and Brunson both on the floor this season, Quickly's played 239 minutes. He's still at 0.6 DraftKings points per minute, 11.3% usage rate, 9.8% assist percentage. Obviously, not all of his minutes are coming with them both on the floor there. They are, running the rotation so that you're getting Quickly out there when Brunson is not out there. Quickly also typically out there when Randle is not out there. So he's always out. He's always going to be out there, or almost always going to be out there with at least one of those two. But he is getting, call it 8 to 10 minutes where they're not both out there.
I don't have anything else to say for the Knicks. I'm not going to anybody unless they start.
Yeah, that definitely seems correct.
Although, $3,100 Isaiah Hartenstein is like certainly the guy that you could get to if something goes bad for Mitchell Robinson, but it could also just then be Jericho Sims too. So
sure.
That's where, if there wasn't a Jericho Sims, then I think Hartenstein would be interesting for that like one game every 2 weeks that Robinson only plays like 14 minutes. But because of Sims, now you have to get that question right twice. I got nothing else here.
Yeah, and if you're projecting 40 to 45 fantasy points from Julius Randle, you should use somebody else's projections.
Yeah, I got him at 51 on DraftKings today.
Yeah, we have him at 49.8.
Yeah. So how many minutes?
38.
Okay. Yeah, that's just not what he's doing. Nope. So, PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. If you're interested in checking out PrizePicks, and you should be, if you click the link in the description of this video, you can get a deposit bonus up to $100. So if you put in 50, they'll match with 50. If you put in 100, they will match with 100. And what you're looking to do is pick player props. My recommendation, put together 5 on one card. You can net up to 10x your entry fee. And you can do this across sports. They've got soccer, tennis, college basketball. They've got props for college football tonight. Adam and I are going to focus most on the NBA, and they've got some fantasy score props up right now. Now, this is going to be FanDuel scoring, and I'm taking you, Adam, right to your team, the Washington Wizards, over under 42.5 for your boy Kristaps Porzingis.
42.5 FanDuel points.
Yes.
Over.
Same. And I like that over too. So
yeah. Yep.
Sign me up for a little bit of Porzingis here. Your other boy, Kyle Kuzma, 37.5.
Over, but not as confidently as Porzingis.
I completely agree. Julius Randle, over under 46.5.
FanDuel, even, but I would like if I had to take it, I'd go over.
I got it at 47.5 on FanDuel. Obviously, it's a better scenario for him on the DraftKings side, double doubles and all that jazz. But I still have a slight lean towards that over. This one's actually interesting. I'm just going to say these out loud. This is more for reference sake than anything else. Najee Marshall's at 26.5. Herb Jones is at 22.5. Trey Murphy at 20.5. So big gaps on the FanDuel side for those three guys. Apparently they like Najee Marshall a little bit better than everybody else as well. Maybe that's driving some things. Who knows? That said, I would take the over on 20.5 for Trey Murphy by quite a bit. But that's PrizePicks for you guys. Again, link in the description. $100 instant match deposit bonus. You can't ask for much more. The San Antonio Spurs are 11-point underdogs in Memphis. I don't know how much we could actually talk about this game right now. We don't totally know what's going on for San Antonio. They've got a Q tag on Keldon Johnson, which creates just massive ripple effects if he ends up being out. Jakob Poeltl is in, Vassell out for a while. We saw no Keldon Johnson on Saturday. He also left early on Friday. If Keldon Johnson just changes everything for San Antonio, all the usage has to go somewhere. 30 plus minutes need to go somewhere. So I don't totally know what I want to look at right now. Even if Keldon's in, though, Langford, Trey Jones, Sohan, Poeltl, Richardson, McDermott to a degree. I have interest in a bunch of San Antonio. It's just really hard to nail down right now.
Yeah, it's tough to know which ones because Keldon Johnson, plays such a big role. But knowing Vassell is already out, like you said, there's going to be a ton of usage to go around. Without Vassell on the floor this year, 31.3% usage rate in 601 minutes for Keldon Johnson, 22% usage rate for Trey Jones. If you also take off Keldon Johnson, so no Devin Vassell and no Keldon Johnson on the floor, Trey Jones up to a 25% usage rate. Sohan gets up to 22%. Jakob Poeltl's only played 78 minutes, but he's at 1.25 fantasy points per minute. Josh Richardson, 22.5%. Like it just opens up a lot of upside for guys that typically you don't really think about having a lot of upside.
And that said, I like Keldon Johnson for 7K on DraftKings and 7,100 on FanDuel if he's in. I guess I'm a little nervous that, a left hamstring injury is going to hamper him in some way if he is able to play. But I love those price tags given the fact that he's like a 30% usage guy with no Vassell.
Yeah, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute with no Vassell. If he's in, I just assume he's good enough to go, playing 32, 33 minutes. Yeah. And that would make him look pretty good at 7K. And even if he's in, Poeltl at 5,900, Jones at 6K, they're both going to look good. 25% ownership coming into Poeltl, 21% coming into Jones. Without Vassell on the floor this year, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute for Jones in 535 minutes. Poeltl's at 1.29 DraftKings points per minute in 399 minutes. They both just look really, really good. And then you get ownership coming into some of these, cheaper guys as well. Sohan at 5K pulling 14%. Richardson at 4K pulling 15%. Those both seem fine with no Vassell on the floor. Sohan's at 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. Richardson's at 0.9. Barring foul trouble, you should probably get around 30 minutes from Sohan, probably mid-20s from Richardson. So they both, look perfectly fine. Langford at 3,700, McDermott at 3,200. The minutes get a little bit scary, but, Langford 0.72 DraftKings points per minute, McDermott 0.88. Certainly feel better about Langford if Keldon Johnson's out. If Keldon Johnson's in, you still run the risk of just the random, 18-minute game from Langford where Stanley Johnson plays more, McDermott plays more, Branham plays more. But
Keita Bates-Diop is back now, so that can complicate matters.
Yeah, so certainly feel better about Langford's minutes if if Johnson is out.
Okay. Yeah, this one, it's really hard to dig in any further here. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more news throughout the day on Keldon Johnson, because his piece is just so massive to the rest of San Antonio. Memphis is on a back-to-back. I don't really think that we can talk about them right now. We had no Ja and no Steven Adams yesterday. That could just be because of, them being on the front end of a back-to-back. Brandon Clark hasn't played in 4 games. Desmond Bane hasn't played their last 2 back-to-backs, but did play yesterday. Makes me think that he's not going to play today. I don't really have much that I can say here about Memphis. I generally am just going to have some interest in whoever ends up starting.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you as far as for now, assuming that Bane's not going to play since he hasn't been. If he does, then he's going to look good.
This isn't the game they need him to play either.
Right. Yeah, he's 6,600. If Bane plays, he looks good, but I just assume they're going to rest him. In which case, you should get things opening up for John Conchar at 4,300. But John Moran at 10-3 looks better if Bane is out. Jackson at 6,800 looks better if Bane is out. So either of those guys are going to look good one way or the other, but they'll look better if Bane sits. Adams is another solid option to get to, 6K, not pulling any ownership, but assuming he plays, good spot for him as well.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where at the very least we need their injury report for today, and we won't get that until 2:30. So I don't have anything else that I could add here from Memphis.
Yeah, you're going to like guys from Memphis. It's just a matter of which guys.
Yep. The Los Angeles Lakers are 9-point dogs in Denver, 240 total. Yikes. No Lonnie Walker, no Anthony Davis, no Austin Reeves. LeBron is in. Russ is in. Q-tag on Troy Brown, which is oddly important for, at the very least, Troy Brown. LeBron is in the teens in ownership, a little bit under 10% on FanDuel. Russell Westbrook is at 12% on DraftKings. Everybody's on single digits in FanDuel. No one's getting any ownership on the Lakers side. I think I like Schroeder the most of anybody on the Lakers for DraftKings, but I don't exactly like anybody here for LA. This is a really bad spot.
Wait, you like Schroeder more than you like LeBron?
I think I'd be more likely to get Schroeder in my lineups than LeBron. I'd be happier to see LeBron's name in a lineup.
Sure, okay.
But I would rather just have Jason Tatum or, name any of the other 10 dudes that are expensive on DraftKings.
I was going to say, I like Schroeder the most out of the low-owned guys. 32 minutes per game in 11 games without Davis and with LeBron, 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. Certainly been playing a bit more recently, and Austin Reeves being out helps that. But, LeBron has been very, very good in these games without Anthony Davis. So I understand why he's getting that ownership. 1.6 DraftKings points per minute, 35.5 minutes per game in 12 games without Davis this year. 35.8% usage rate, 33.8% assist percentage. So certainly, like getting to LeBron. Westbrook at 7,700 looks fine as well. The playing time obviously is somewhat volatile since he's coming off the bench, but you are still likely to get 30 plus minutes if this game's competitive. He's played 11 games now without Davis and with LeBron, 27 minutes per game, 1.37 DraftKings points per minute. But again, them being a little bit more shorthanded now, you can give him a couple of extra minutes. Thomas Bryant going to get absolutely wrecked defensively, but he's a good point per minute guy. Not getting much ownership. Don't hate it in tournaments, but I think LeBron and Westbrook are the two guys that I would expect to get to the most. Schroeder probably comes in third.
Who's the worst 10K plus guy today on DraftKings? For me, it's LeBron. So that's why I kind of said it the way that I did. I think there's one other answer.
Probably Randall.
Okay, that would be my other answer. But I have Randall over LeBron in this spot.
And from a positional standpoint, I think you can make the case for Sabonis also.
Holy shit, I didn't even notice his name there. Yeah, that's fair. What do we do with the rest of this Lakers team? Bev, Brown, Toscano, Anderson, Gabriel, Nunn. I feel like I'm just reading off the roster of whatever the hell their G League team's name is. I don't want anything here.
Yeah, I'll say, I think mostly ignore them. I mean, looking at the last game, and you didn't have Brown in. Toscano Anderson started, still only played 18 minutes. Gabriel only played 13 off the bench. Nunn only played 14 because you ended up getting 24 minutes from Max Christie. But you can very easily just see it where, Christie plays 16 minutes, but none of those other guys still play enough to matter. I don't really have interest in the bottom end of this Lakers bench. And Sterling Brown probably starts playing more minutes sooner than later.
You would think. I'm going to slowly but surely walk away from the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. I will happily get to some Denver Nuggets, however. Everybody that's normally available is available. It's just Jeff Green that's still out. They have pretty well consolidated their rotation at this point. You're getting Jokic, Murray, Gordon, Pope, Bones to a degree, all pulling some love depending on which site. Upwards of 36% for Michael Porter Jr. on FanDuel, which feels a tad high, but to me, he is the best option on Denver. Jokic at 26% on DraftKings feels a bit high, but it's Nikola Jokic going up against the Lakers. Like, I'm very happy to go ahead and get him. Feels like a good spot. I just kind of want most of Denver.
Yeah, right there with you. Clearly a very, very good spot against the Lakers. You have blowout risk, but also if the game blows out, then somebody for the Nuggets was most likely playing well. They're not exactly elite defensively. You still have a 115 implied total for the Lakers. So likely to just be a lot of points scored in this game. Jokic at 11-7, the opportunity cost is high. He's still pulling 26% ownership, 18% chance of being optimal. He should absolutely torch this Lakers front court. But again, you're paying a premium both in terms of salary and opportunity costs. So, and the ownership is there. So all of that stuff, kind of works against him, but still looks very, very good. We have him projected for like 62 DraftKings points right now. Jamal Murray at 6,800 seems exceptional. Kind of surprised he's only pulling 18% ownership because in competitive games, you're getting 35, 36 minutes from him now. Aaron Gordon at 6,600, Michael Porter Jr. at 5,900, both look good as well. I kind of think that those mid-range guys, Murray, Gordon, Porter, but specifically Murray, are going a little bit overlooked and Jokic going a little bit overowned.
Yeah, I'd rather free up some of that Jokic salary to take Emmanuel Quickly and turn him into Jamal Murray.
Sure. But, yeah, that's a good one. Like, I Quickly shouldn't be getting more ownership than Murray, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jamal Murray looks exceptional for that price tag and given that current ownership. He's 7,800 on FanDuel, so I think he's more appropriately priced, but 6% owned. Like, I'm more interested in Jamal Murray as a GPP play just because no one's touching him on FanDuel at what I think is probably like his correct price.
Right.
But yeah, Jokic, Murray, Gordon, KCP, Porter, like, I'm happy to go across the board there.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out too, the last game you got 33 minutes from Michael Porter Jr. So those minutes are trending in the right direction, and that price tag has not moved.
36% owned at 5,500 right now on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean that's a just broken price. 5,900 on DraftKings is pretty low, but
yeah. Oh yeah, he's very clearly the best non-Jokic option on the FanDuel side. I don't have anything else here for Denver other than just play these dudes.
Yep.
Finally, we close this one out with the Orlando Magic 6-point underdogs in Sacramento, 239 total. By the way, hit that like button, guys. 600 of you in here, 100 likes. We can get up to 150 if you guys want to help us out a little bit. Magic are 6-point dogs, 239 total. For Orlando, no Bol, no John Isaac, no Chuma Okeke. So they've got basically everybody back. No more suspensions, or all the injuries that we have now are sort of like longer term stuff, except for Bol, I guess, is out with COVID. Wendell Carter Jr., 15% owned on DraftKings. Everybody else in single digits. Wendell Carter Jr., slightly different on FanDuel. $6,300 power forward center is 32% owned. I basically agree with that. Banchero and Wagner both sneak up above 10%. Not a lot of ownership here coming into Orlando, but it is a team that I would want to get to tonight.
Yeah, I don't totally get why there isn't more ownership here. This is a really appealing game. And apparently my laptop's not plugged in, so no, never mind. It says it is. I think, I don't know. Computer might die in a second. Banchero looks good at 8,200, 3% owned. Franz Wagner, 7,100. Like, I get why they're not super popular, but also, they probably should be pulling a little bit more ownership. Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,400. He's the only guy really pulling ownership here, and he is center only on DraftKings, so that hurts a bit, but it is a good spot. He does still look good. Markelle Fultz should give you 30 minutes if he avoids foul trouble and injury. Cole Anthony at 5,200. You kind of, project him for like 24, 25 minutes, but he gets to 28 to 30 often enough that he's going to look pretty good. I like Banchero. I like Franz Wagner, Carter, Fultz, Anthony. Like all these guys just look like good tournament plays.
Yeah, I've got a pretty big stand right now on Wagner on FanDuel, 6,600. So much better price. Shooting guard, small forward, only 18% owned. So I see him as a bit under owned. He is a guy that I'm getting to. I am getting to Banchero. I have Wendell Carter Jr. in half my lineups at that $6,300 price tag. Just position and price works out perfectly there. All the prices for the bench guys for Orlando, though, get to become kind of problematic on the FanDuel end. Like Markelle Fultz is $7,500. That's $1,400 more expensive than he is on DraftKings. Cole Anthony's $700 more expensive. So I'm mostly just sticking to that big three of Wagner, Banchero, and Carter.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I am good on laptop power now. Power strips work better when they are turned on.
Yes, they do. Shocking that you can't turn anything on in your apartment.
Well played.
Yeah. The Sacramento Kings close this one out. Malik Monk is off of the injury report. And much like I like some of the pieces for Orlando, I feel the same way about Sacramento. Fox, Sabonis, Barnes, Herter, Murray, and Monk are all, call it 10 to 15% owned, something in that range. Pretty similar scenario on FanDuel. I just want to get to individual pieces for Sacramento because this game environment is fantastic. If I wanted to recommend any individual, I actually think it's $8,700 De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I run into that trap a lot. But he does look good. You've gotten more playing time recently from him and Mitchell together, which is just good for both of their minutes. Kind of like, when we talked about Julius Randle earlier in the year when Toppin was, because, Toppin's playing 14 minutes, so Randle can only play 34. That's kind of what you're running into with Fox and Mitchell up until recently when they have started playing more minutes alongside each other. So I do like Fox here. I just also never get the guy right. So take that for whatever it's worth. But I think he looks good. Sabonis, if you can get there at 10-5. Like, I do think that he's an interesting pivot away from Jokic because he has the same issue in terms of he's expensive both in terms of actual salary and then also the opportunity cost is high. But you are getting a $1,200 discount off of Jokic. We do have Jokic projected about 9 points higher. So, still getting to Jokic from a projection standpoint makes sense, but you're getting, 10% ownership compared to 25. So that's an interesting spot. But I think the wings here are interesting too, just because of the salaries. 5,700 to Herter, 56 to Barnes. Both should play north of 30 minutes here, assuming a competitive game. Both have MPE, which is nice. Keegan Murray at 4,300, pulling 10% ownership. He should give you 28 to 30 minutes if this game's competitive. Looks, good. Malik Monk should play low to mid 20s. He's pulling 16% ownership at 4,500. That seems fine. So this is just a team that should be very popular across the board.
Love this final game. Anything else you want to touch on for this slate?
Nope.
Anything coming up for you later today?
Yeah, new video series in place of the tournament plays videos, doing some stuff with our new Bet Pro NBA tool. So first video will be out this afternoon. Probably will be a little bit of a shit show because it's the first one and I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing, but that'll be out. And then deeper dive will be tonight.
5 p.m.
Yeah.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to PrizePicks for being the sponsor of this video. Make sure you're watching all of the content that we have for the rest of the day. For now, we're going to get on out of here. Good luck tonight. We will talk to you again tomorrow morning. Peace.